sound.
Yeah, wow. Thanks, Sandra.
I'm waiting for sound. They're working on something, so ignoring you. We're trying to get this settled, and I'll go ahead and call the meeting in a few minutes. That's no problem. Thank you. This is your copy. Also, take care. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Sorry for the short delay. Technical difficulties, as they say. I would like to call this meeting to order. It is now 6:05, and I welcome you back to the 2023-24 school year and to this meeting. Both of those of you that are participating at the Board of Education meeting here tonight in person, and those that are watching the meeting via live streaming, we'd like to welcome you. That's tonight on YouTube. We ask that anyone addressing the board, please use the microphones at the podium and to be sure to identify yourselves for the record. And as a reminder, the link to the meeting is on the district webpage under the Board of Education. The streaming will run through the end of the meeting. In the event there is a disruption of the audio portion, I will pause the meeting until it is reestablished. We have a full attendance tonight. That brings us to the announcement of meetings. Dr. Elder, item 2 on the agenda, would you please announce the meeting?
Madam President, this meeting has been announced in accordance with the Open Meetings Resolution and is a legally constituted meeting of the Los Lunas Schools Board of Education.
Thank you, Dr. Elder. Do I have an Aaliyah Carrasco in the room? Dr. Elder, would you please announce our visitor tonight?
I would love to welcome Aaliyah. Our pledge leader this evening represents Bosque Farms Elementary. Her name is Aaliyah Carrasco. She's a 6th grader in Mrs. Terrell's homeroom. She has attended Bosque Farms Elementary since pre-kindergarten and lives with her mom, dad, and younger sister Liliana, who is in 3rd grade. Her teachers report that Aaliyah is a wonderful student. She always does her very best work and is willing to help others. Her eagerness to learn all she can inspires other students in the classroom. Aaliyah is kind and gets along with everyone. She is respectful to adults and peers, trustworthy and dependable. She is a model Jaguar. Her favorite content areas are reading and writing. She enjoys reading stories in particular. Her favorite series is Maze Runner. Aaliyah also enjoys writing exciting stories. Her hobbies include athletics, especially basketball, and fine arts, including painting, drawing, and crocheting. Aaliyah's medium of choice is acrylic paint on canvas. She is also a performing artist and plays the piano beautifully. In the future, she hopes to become an artist in any field. Aaliyah is super excited to represent BFE this evening and lead the district in the Pledge of Allegiance. And so at this time, if you would please rise, and Aaliyah, it's to you.
Got a certificate? Thank you so much. Good job.
Aaliyah, no, not the whole bowl.
Yes, that's over here. Cured all the chocolate.
Wait. All that candy in. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now that brings us to item 4 on the agenda, which is approval of agenda. Before I ask for a motion on this, I want to make a comment on item number 15 of this agenda, which is procedure for due care for reimbursement of legal fees. There has been an expressed concern that the agenda item does not meet the required specificity of the Open Meetings Act. So first I want to address that item. The Open Meeting Act does require that items must be listed with sufficient specificity to ensure that the interested members of the public are given reasonable notice about topics the board will discuss or will be addressing. Discussing this requirement, the Attorney General Handbook calls for avoiding broad or vague terms like old business or new business, most especially when the board expects to take formal action or transact business. In this case, item number 15 is not an action item. Rather, it's a discussion item only. More importantly, it is listed with sufficient specificity to identify that there will be a discussion regarding the reimbursement of these legal fees. Because of these reasons, the agenda was posted and does provide sufficient notice and awareness of the nature of this discussion. And even more specifically, even the identity of the parties involved. This confirms that sufficient notice has been provided. Notwithstanding, however, I do want to acknowledge the concerns that have been raised by the public and the community, and in an effort to maintain the highest level of transparency on an issue that is of interest to the members of the public, I move that we remove item number 15 and the procedure of due care for reimbursement of legal fees from tonight's agenda, and that it be rescheduled for our next agenda. And in addition to that, I am asking the board members to give me appropriate language they would like me to add to this agenda item for the next meeting. So having said that, as board president, I would ask before we approve the agenda that we remove item number 15.
I'll second that motion.
I have a second for Mr. Vickers. Before I proceed, I also want to clarify on the voting of this item. It would be myself, Mr. Vickers, and Mr. Bennett voting on the approval of the agenda if I remove this item from the agenda. Is that correct?
Madam President, members of the board, this agenda item does involve the request by two board members, Smith and member Young. So to comply with governmental conduct, they should not participate in any vote of any kind related to this particular item.
Okay, so having made my motion and having a second, is there any discussion on the removal of item number 15 from the procedure of due care for reimbursement of legal fees from this agenda and adding it to the next agenda, which would be 88, right? I'm sorry, August 26th. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'm going to ask for the motion to remove this item to be approved. Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
How do you vote? Mr. Bennett, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I too vote yes. Motion to remove it and add it to next meeting is granted. Are there any other agenda items that we need to discuss that need to be amended or removed from this agenda? Not hearing any, then the agenda is approved and passed with the exception of item number 15 being removed. Next is the report on the executive closed session. As announced and posted in accordance with the New Mexico Meetings Act, the Los Angeles School Board of Education meetings resolution, a quorum of Los Angeles School Board member education did participate in a closed executive session. The closed executive session was held this evening on August 8th, 2023 at 5 p.m. for discussion of limited personnel matters as permitted under section 1015(1)(h)(2) of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act as follows. Number one, the terms of the contract for newly hired superintendent and the process for transition into that position. And number two, the terms of the contract for the interim superintendent and the process for transition out of the interim role. I affirm that no other topics were discussed in these two matters, nor was any action taken while in the closed executive session. That brings us to item number 6 on the agenda, which is public comment. Ms. Elder, do we have any requests for public comment this evening?
President, we have one. Thank you, ma'am.
So the request is to address the board on item number 15. And since this item has been removed from the agenda, it is going to be placed on the next agenda. Mrs. Rindles, I'll allow you 2 minutes if you want it now, or do you want to have us hold your form for next time? I'll give you 2 minutes. If I can get the minute timed. I know it's come off, gentlemen, but nobody knew it was coming off until tonight. I'm going to allow a 2-minute public comment. Yeah.
Good evening, Dr. Elder, Dr. Kettler, President Garcia, and members of the board. My name is Heather Rindles, and I understand that the item was removed from the agenda. So what I would like to do this evening, because there's been a lot of angst in our district, a lot of transition over the last few years, I would like to offer a prayer for our district. For those, I would invite you to pray with me for those who would choose to do so. Dear Heavenly Father, we lift our school district up to you, asking you to put a hedge of protection around our students, staff, and administration. We ask that you guide our new superintendent in leading our district out of the disarray that we've been in for the last few years. Please protect our students from the lies that society is feeding them, and may we develop relationships with our students so we can show them that there is nothing wrong with them and they don't need to seek drastic measures to change or harm themselves. We ask that you inspire and invigorate our teaching staff so they can continue to educate our children and help them to become productive members of society. Be with our bus drivers as they work to take our children to school and back home safely every day. Be with our resource officers as they strive to keep us all safe. And we pray that you raise up community members to run for public office that will stand up and fight for our children and keep them at the forefront of their decisions. We ask that you help us to keep our motives pure, and may you raise up people to stand up for what's right. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you for your comments. Next item on the agenda is going to be approval of consent items. There was a document, gentlemen, in front of you, which are the consent items for this evening. I stand for a motion on the consent sheet.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda with no exceptions.
Second.
I've got a motion by Mr. Vickers and a second by Mr. Bennett on approving the consent items with no change. Any discussion, gentlemen? Not hearing anything, then I'm going to call for the vote on the consent items. Mr. Didon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yeah.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And I too vote yes. All items on the consent have been approved. Next is going to be item 9 on the agenda, which is our public action as needed regarding the discussion that was held in closed session. Item B9A, is the approval of the superintendent's contract. I need a motion, gentlemen.
Ms. Garcia.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
So first of all, I want to start off by thanking all of the staff and community members that participated in our superintendent search. I was very impressed with the candidates. We had some really good candidates. Some comments were recently made, and I agree with them. We have been somewhat out of whack as the Los Angeles School District, and we're looking forward to moving forward with some stability and some direction that we're going to move forward, and we're all going to be proud of it as a community and as staff and do everything in our power that we can for our students, because that's why we are all here. I want to welcome Dr. Kettler. You did really well. We're excited to have you here. And again, we want to move forward with some stability. That being said, I would like to make a motion that we approve the contract as negotiated with the following amendment to paragraph number 1 to extend the term of the contract to June 30th, 2026.
I'll second it.
Got a motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. Hidon. Gentlemen, any other comments that you'd like to make on the contract with Dr. Teddy? Not hearing any discussion. Let's go ahead and call for the vote. Mr. Hidon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
I vote yes.
Yes. Welcome, Dr. Kettler. Item under the public action needed regarding discussion held in closed executive session 9B, approval for interim superintendent's contract with revisions.
Madam President, I'd like to, before I start off, I'd like to thank Dr. Elder for leading us through the rest of the school year. I appreciate it, and helping us and guide us through this search for new superintendent. And I hope you can guide Dr. Kettler in the right direction to lead us to success. That being said, I move that interim contract for Dr. Elder in October 14th of 2023. I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Mr. Hidon gave me a second on that motion. Any discussion, gentlemen, on the contract amendment for Dr. Interim Superintendent, Dr. Elder?
Just one brief one, Ms. Garcia. I want to thank you as well. You did a tremendous job. And I know that both of you up until October 14th are going to work together and get us kickstarted in the right direction. So it's very exciting, and thank you. Thank you both. Thank you so much for what you've done.
And I just want to say, Dr. Kettler, I'm going to get this next up, right, Mr. Vickers, because I always get it mixed up. Thank you, and you're in good hands. Thank you, Dr. Elder, for the work you've done. I'll call for the vote. Mr. Hidon, how do you vote?
Yeah.
Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Mr. Vickers,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
And I too vote yes, contract approved. Now we move to item 10 on our agenda. This is going to be the report on the leadership transition plan, and I will turn this item over to Dr. Elder. Go ahead, Dr. Elder. Did I miss something? Okay. Did you do the motion and second? The motion was by Mr. Bennett. If you don't have the second, and it passes with all those. That's all right. Thank you. Let's move on to item number 10 on the report on leadership, which is Dr. Elder's transition plan. Dr. Kettler, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. My PowerPoint is coming up. And as it does so, I would like to thank the board for the opportunity to serve as interim superintendent in the transition from Dr. Romero to Dr. Kettler. It has been a pleasure to serve and keep the focus on student learning throughout closing out last school year and starting up this school year. So, when I first started as interim back in March, I brought forth a leadership transition plan for 100 days. That 100 days ended on Friday, July 28th, which is perfect timing. And so just a little bit of review, I affirmed that I'm guided by our motto, vision, mission, and our foundational assumptions. And our foundational assumptions are now in policy section A, which I'm very excited about. I had 4 focus areas in the transition plan on board relations. Next slide, please. Thank you. Listening and planning for the future, increasing public engagement and elevating transparency, and ensuring a strong finish to 22-23 and a successful beginning to 23-24. In the next slide, I give just an overview in the next 4 slides of accomplishments in each of those 4 areas. There's not room to put everything, so I'm just giving you a few of the highlights. Under board relations, the 4 areas that I committed to were communication, collaboration, positive and productive relationships, and aligning and building towards common goals. Some of the accomplishments is we defined a communication plan and protocols in line with our new policies. That yielded a 5-0 affirmative vote and is in place for Dr. Kettler as he comes into the role. Under collaboration, we've created a collaborative approach to involve the community in reviewing and revising the newly adopted NMSBA policy manual. Under positive and productive relationships, I've ensured that all board members are informed in a timely manner of all district issues, events, and successes. And under aligning and building towards common goals, in our May retreat, the board established 7 priority areas to guide our work in the 23-24 school year. More on that shortly. Under listening and planning for the future, I hosted 3 parent forums and had amazing support from our school leaders in facilitating those. We held one at the TRC, one at Valencia Middle School, and one digitally. We had the best participation in the digital parent forum. We held student groups at all 3 high schools in partnership with a new partner with Transcend, which more about in a future board meeting. I held a listening tour with all staff. I invited all staff at all 15 schools to meet with me and got to hear all about their thoughts on what's going well, what can we do better, and how can we support them better to do their very best work each day. We had 5 small groups of principals. So we did principal lunches with groups of 3 principals and I also visited with departments, including lunch with the transportation department, which was really fun. From that listening tour, I identified perceptions of what is working and what needs improvement to improve student learning. And several areas emerged as areas of focus for this school year. One being student attendance, another being behavior management, and 3 cell phones in secondary schools. That was a pervasive conversation topic. In response, the cabinet has started several task forces to address each of these issues, as well as some others that I didn't include. I used the information in planning for 23-24 by minimizing new initiatives. Loud and clear, our staff has said we've started a lot of new things in the last couple of years, and they're good things. We need time to get good at them, and we need support to get good at them. And so we've minimized new initiatives this year and increased support at getting better at implementation of our new initiatives. Next, under increasing engagement with the public, under the business community, I was inducted into the Hispanic Chamber of Valencia County Board just a couple of weeks ago and have connected with local workforce to provide perspective at convocation to our entire staff. Under education partners, I've met routinely with UNMVC leadership in collaboration with Berlin Public Schools, and also connected UNMVC with our staff at convocation. Under elected officials, I've collaborated with Los Lunas Economic Development and Peralta regarding the Peralta Elementary construction plans. Under civic organizations, I've represented the Los Lunas schools with Rotary Club and as a New Mexico Arts Director. Improving communication, I established biweekly communication to all employees via email and to community via website. And I've been visible at community events and interacted with people at all sorts of community events and athletic events. And finally, under telling the story of the successes of our district, I've worked very hard at consistent messaging, both internally and externally with stakeholders of the application of our foundational assumptions. Finally, to ensure a strong end of the year, strong beginning, I've outlined this using the board priorities as a guide. So the next 2 slides, you'll see your 7 priorities from the May retreat. Similarly, in my end of year report, I used those 7 priorities to guide or to frame the year-end report back in May. So first board priority is consistent excellence in every school. We've continued to focus on instructional leadership development with all of our principals and assistant principals to help elevate student learning. All of our sites have completed 90-day plans and monitoring plans for implementation. We've continued to work on a rigorous and complete grade level curriculum and high quality instructional materials. Under the board priority of career preparation, we launched last year and will continue to get better at using a career awareness program in grades 2 through 12. Students are setting goals for themselves. We've increased career and technical education and dual credit opportunities. We've connected with local workforce and acquired a New Mexico Public Education Department Innovation Zone grant. Under the board priority of safety and security, we were able to increase our SRO force. We're exploring metal detectors for secondary schools, and Mr. Baca continues our strong partnerships with local law enforcement and emergency responders. Again, these are just a small sample of the things that we're doing. Under the board priority of recruiting and retraining staff, we increased salaries above the state minimum this year through our negotiations. We increased teacher hourly pay. We have established communities of practice so that all of our employees have the chance to connect with people in similar roles and work together towards getting better and better. We've established an employee daycare, thanks to Susan Chavez, and really working on that culture of outcomes-based professional learning, because we know that staff wants to be successful and they want their kids to be successful. And the way that we're successful is by continuing to get better. Under the board priority of health and wellness, our social and emotional learning initiative continues this year with site team planning and implementation of those plans. And we have a new employee wellness program starting up. Under the board priority of communication, we worked very hard to reduce principal email load through a weekly update with consolidated information from all departments so that principals get one email with all of the information they need for the week. That continues to be a work in progress. The biweekly employee letter, the community letter, and we've kept local press in the loop of events and accomplishments. And we've had some really good press from the news bulletin. Under the board priority of fiscal responsibility and transparency, we actively engaged school leadership in budget development for this school year. We increased their engagement with their school budget, and we provided a board orientation on capital funding and ongoing bond project reports, which you'll see later this evening. And so that's kind of a snapshot of the 100 days in the transition between Dr. Romero and Dr. Kettler. Next steps between now and October 14th, I'm going to fully onboard and support 1000% incoming Superintendent Kettler. I'm very excited to get to work with him. I'll continue to support leaders and educators in implementing and perfecting evidence-based practices as the route towards improved student outcomes. We'll continue to build collective responsibility and accountability for implementation of evidence-based practices. We'll support leaders and educators in identifying practices to retire in education. Very rarely do we say stop doing something. So we're going to continue to work on identifying things that we need to stop doing. And we'll continue to seek feedback and make adjustments to improve professional and student learning outcomes. And so again, I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to serve the district in this capacity. The last several months, it's been my pleasure to serve in this way. And I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to all this year has in store for all of us. And that concludes my report on the leadership transition plan.
Thank you, Dr. Elder. Any comments or questions on this leadership transition plan?
Garcia.
Yes, go ahead,
Not
sir.
only to say thank you again, and this was done eloquently, it was perfect, and the job you did. And capturing what we did at the retreat was absolutely amazing what you did in here. And I'm glad that you have this plan moving forward with Dr. Kettler. So it's somewhat seamless when we get to that point. And obviously there'll be some conversations with Dr. Kettler, but for now it seems like it's seamless and it's going to move forward just like we need it to. So thank you.
Mr. Bennett, anything?
No.
Mr. Vickers?
I just want to say thank you for the role that you have played. It's not a real easy role to play. So we thank you for that and look forward to the transition to complete and you're back in your other role after that.
Dr. Elder, I want to really thank you for what you did. You stepped in interim. You put yourself out there on the line. You gave us the plan, stuck with it. You made yourself visible. Like I told you, I got calls from people seeing at the state championship games. And that's what this community is wanting. Thank you.
And I'll just echo all the thank yous because I think you know that we really do appreciate you. And one of the things I'm most appreciative of is that retreat that we had and how we were able to pin down these goals to get this policy program started. All the most important roles that this board does, you helped us do that. So I thank you for bringing us together to get those accomplished. So, and of course, I know that you have shoes to fill and you're going to be doing a lot to do that. And as I stated already, you've got a great course. So good luck to you. All right. Thank you. This was for informational purposes only. No action is needed or warranted on this transition plan at this time. That takes us to item number 11 on the agenda. This is the approval of the Board of Education priorities for the 2023-24 school year. And this is I think I'll turn this back over to Dr. Elder. I think you wanted to address those topics.
Yes, and I think the PowerPoint is coming up. There's one more slide. Very last one, John. There you go. In our May retreat, the board assigned some board priorities. And this evening, I'm going to actually ask you to affirm those with a vote so that as we transition to Dr. Kettler, he has clear board priorities to focus his work as incoming superintendent. And so just as a review, the priorities you gave me at the time were consistent excellence in every school, career preparation, security and safety, recruit and retain staff, health and wellness, communication, and fiscal responsibility and transparency. And so my ask is for an approval of those priorities moving forward into the next administration.
Thank you, ma'am. Board members, any questions or comments or questions at this time?
Ms. Garcia.
Go ahead, sir.
So I just, before I make my motion, I just wanted to point out to Dr. Kettler that there are 7 bullets here and they seem relatively easy, but what's not listed on here is the 26 sub bullets per bullet. So this goes pretty far in depth because we want to make sure that we're doing all of this to a level that moves us, like I said, in the direction that we want to be. So I was very excited also about that board retreat. I think it does wonders for us to get along and to collaborate and to start working for the future. That being said, I'd like to make a motion that we accept and approve the Los Angeles School Board priorities.
I've got a motion from Mr. Smith to approve item number 11 on the agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
I got a motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. Vickers. Any other discussion, gentlemen?
Madam Chair, I just want to say I look forward to working with Dr. Kettler on his ideas and collaboration on each of these bullet points and moving forward with how we actually accomplish all these goals.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Leon.
Add to what Mr. Vickers and Brian Smith had to say there. Mr. Kettler, I mean, there's 7 bullets here, and I think Brian said there was 26 or 27 little footnotes to that. But you see these 7 bullets, and you're going to be coming in. You're going to get to see this through your lens now. And it was nice hearing from these board members I was hearing things that I thought I would never hear before that were missing. And that's important. So that was a really important retreat that we had in workshop. Thank you, guys.
Okay, not hearing any more discussion on approval for the board priorities for 2023-24. I'll call for the vote. Mr. Hidong, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes,
Mr. Bennett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Smith, how do you vote?
Yes.
I too vote yes, and the Board of Education priorities have been voted on and approved. That takes us down to item number 12 on the agenda, which is the superintendent's report. Again, one more time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Elder.
Thank you, Madam President. It is my pleasure to introduce our high school student representative. Welcome, Brooklyn Wagner. Brooklyn is a junior at Valencia High School. She lives with her parents, Tammy and Eric Henson. She is the oldest in the family and has two younger sisters, Allie and Sadie. Brooklyn is a very busy student. She's on the volleyball and softball teams, a member of Student Council and National Honor Society, a member of the Powerlifting Club, and is also a hostess at Ribs. She is active in her church youth group. She loves to color and draw in her free time, hang out with family and friends, and work out. After school, Brooklyn plans on attending Texas Tech Guns Up. She would like to study wildlife biology and become a pathologist. Brooklyn was chosen by the staff at Valencia High School because of her high energy, her academic success, and her commitment to her extracurriculars. She demonstrates daily the skills to be an outstanding student and role model for the other students at VHS. Welcome, Brooklyn.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and interim Superintendent Elder. I appreciate this opportunity to speak on behalf of my school, Valencia High. Even though I've been only attending VHS for 2 full years and starting on my 3rd, I can tell you that there's always an opportunity to succeed, to try new things you might have never thought of trying before, and so many ways to express yourself with people with the same interests as you. I can truly see that our community is always trying to make sure everyone fits in and feels included with everything they want to partake in. Being a part of Valencia High School's community, I've been blessed with so many opportunities to show my school spirit, help others around campus, show strengths and interests through sports like volleyball, softball, and being a part of our school's powerlifting team for a while, being a member of National Honor Society and Student Council. These also have introduced me to many new friends and unforgettable memories and many life lessons that I will take with me when I graduate in 2025. While being a part of all these amazing school programs, I also have a job as a hostess at Ribs Barbecue in Las Lunas. I've been working there since last November, so almost a year, and this job taught me so many valuable life lessons. Most importantly, prioritizing. Trying to juggle all these activities, family, a job, and schoolwork may seem overwhelming, but personally, this is what is going to get me set up for college and after high school life. This has also helped me realize what is important, what needs to be done right away, responsibility, and clear communication skills. This summer, before school started, VHS hosted a great launch party to welcome students and staff that were new to the Valencia community. It gave us the chance to introduce all of the fun and exciting upcoming events. Our fall sports, such as football, will be having their first game of the season at Kirtland Central next week. Then volleyball, cross country, and soccer tryouts are to follow. Student Council and NHS helped with the freshman and new student orientation. We led tours and just gave some friendly advice for a new generation of Jags. Even though starting high school may seem intimidating and frightening, the first week of school went pretty smoothly, and it seems like everyone is starting to get into the groove of things around campus. Our school counselors have been very helpful and patient, making sure that every student is getting the classes that they want and need to make their school year successful. Valencia High School offers so much room for success with its education practices and great teachers and staff to help along your journey as a high schooler. For example, many teachers are open to help students one-on-one during their lunch. Many set up Zoom meetings for specific classes and subjects so students can get extra help from home. Valencia is also very serious on making sure every student is safe and on the right track with great security and phenomenal campus resource officers. Valencia High School and all that it has to offer with its great teachers, staff, and counselors, and allows all students the opportunity to develop their strengths. Lastly, there are many ways to for students to show what they have learned through the tests given year round, like the short cycle assessments, AP exams, SATs, ACTs. Those scores can open many doors for scholarship opportunities and benefit students when applying to whatever college they want to go to. There will be an academic awards ceremony in the spring to appreciate and celebrate all of the students and staff members' hard work. I am sure this school year will be amazing. Thank you again for allowing me to speak about VHS. Go Jags.
Thank you, Mrs. Wagner. So we
Yeah.
might have some questions. Okay, I'll turn it over.
Okay, sounds good.
And anybody want to start?
Um,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for being here with your schedule. It's sort of unfair that your administration put you in this for one more night.
No, it's okay.
But thank you very much, and I wish you the best, and you're right, it's a great crew over there at Valencia High School, and I wish you great success there.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
So I just want to tell you that your resume is already impressive, and I think you're doing a great job. That's kudos to you and to the staff at Valencia High School who do a very tremendous job. I just wanted to point out, though, that the temperatures in Lubbock are almost unbearable as they are compared to Albuquerque.
Oh, I know. That's
So
okay.
you might consider before you actually sign that document. So, but best of luck wherever you go.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I wanted to say the same thing, that you've already built an impressive resume and you're just a wonderful representative for Valencia High School and the Los Lunas schools. So that's just great. And enjoy Lubbock.
Thank
You'll
you.
miss the mountains.
I'm very excited. Yeah.
Mr. Hidalgo?
I want to thank you for your presentation. I feel good about what we can see there because I know our replacements, we're in good hands.
Thank you so much.
Good job. I just want to add that either you spoke fast or I listened slow. What are you going to study? What do you want to do?
So I would like to go to Texas Tech to study wildlife biology. For the longest time, I've always been super interested with outdoors, nature and all that stuff. So I really want to go into that. And I took biology, dual credit biology freshman year. And we studied a lot on cells and animal cells, plant cells. And I got really interested in that. So I thought, why shouldn't I do a job surrounded by that? And so I looked up wildlife pathology or cellular molecular biology. And those are just surrounded that type of study. So that's what I would like to go to when I go to Texas Tech.
I like that. And I like that it's not, this typical or standard maybe direction that a lot of students think of, but that's a very important one. And I think that's awesome. Good luck to you.
Thank
Wish
you.
the best.
Thank you so much.
All right, next we have a school report from Bosque Farms Elementary. They actually volunteered to be the first school to report this year. And so welcome to Principal Deanna Herrera.
A copy of our presentation is in your bags if you want to look at it along with us. Good evening, Board President Garcia, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Elder. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about Bosque Farms Elementary. My name is Deanna Herrera, and I am the principal at Bosque Farms Elementary. And with me tonight is our assistant principal, Mr. Adam Hoskamp. You're ready to start. At Bosque Farms Elementary, we strive daily that our students deserve access to a robust and rigorous curriculum using grade level standards. At BFE, our teachers are using our district provided curriculum documents that provide our teachers with a scope and sequence of what should be taught throughout our year. Learning targets is a practice that we began last year with our staff. Teachers are asked to post daily learning targets outlining what students are going to achieve by the end of each lesson. Our learning targets help us to facilitate clear communication to our students and families so they know what to work for towards proficiency. Walkthroughs and feedback sessions are also provided to all staff members from our administration team, identifying the areas of strength and areas that need improvements so that we can continue our growth as a school and develop our professional development needs.
At Bosque Farms Elementary, all students are engaged with instruction at grade level standards that utilize innovative learning resources. We have a site initiative this year for all grade level teams to use real world math problems daily. This came about because of a teacher team decision last year that was a collaborative decision to restructure their instructional block for math, transitioning the word problems that typically came at the end of the lesson, but moving those to the forefront, the beginning of the lesson. And then when they noticed that was more effective with having students practice those real world problems, it led to student achievement data. There was an increase in 21% of student achievement data in that content area, and the teacher team attributed entirely to that instructional shift.
Recognizing and accommodating different learning styles is a fundamental aspect of teaching at BFE. And by allowing our students to have one-to-one devices, we're able to meet our students' needs where they are at. Providing technology as a tool allows our learners, regardless of their strengths or preferences, to have an opportunity to succeed in the classroom. Classrooms are able to connect to real-world experiences as technology has provided our students with information beyond the confines of our classroom. The picture in the top left is a bot ball competition we held at our school last fall. Students were given hands-on experience related to robotics, programming, and problem solving. It made learning fun and engaging for all.
At Bosque Farms Elementary, students learn about the cultural diversity of our unique learning community. Students that are indigenous, specifically tribal members of the Pueblo of Isleta and the Dene, have content that addresses their heritage provided by our site Native American Liaison. That includes traditional parts of their heritage, including languages, homes, music, clothing, and food, as well as the oral histories of their people that are studied through literature. In this way, we are respecting all of our cultural identity in the community of Bosque Farms.
Taking time to review our data allows us as a school to have a comprehensive view of how well students are achieving the intended learning outcomes we at BFE and our district have identified. When we reviewed our 2022-23 data, we identified that majority of our teams are making a 10% growth in our state and formative assessments. The graph in the far left corner will show you where our students started at the beginning of the year in blue, and where our students ended the year in green. You can see all grades made a significant increase in our math scores. After further analyzing and reviewing our data, our school had made the informed decision that we need to focus this year continuously on our phonics, our rigorous word problems, as Mr. Holskamp mentioned, the success our fourth grade team, and lastly, in writing. We created a writing task force this year where students will develop, or teachers, I apologize, will develop a clear scope and sequence for writing in each grade, looking at the progression of writing and the genres.
At Bosque Farms Elementary, all students learn about future career opportunities. This flows primarily from welcoming local community members to present their trades to our students that explain what their contributions to our community are. Students have question and answer discussions in which they have the opportunity to ask specific questions to get clarity on if this was going to be a possible future career for them as well. We have our agricultural days that we had last year, in which we had 26 different organizations present that include the U.S. Department of Agriculture, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the United States Dairy Association, FFA, and our partnership in Berlin with the Whitfield Wildlife Conservation. We are again going to continue this year with our career days.
Incorporating social and emotional learning into the school is essential in order to nurture a well-rounded student and staff member. At BFE, our mission is to develop the self-regulating skills, self-management, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Last year, we provided our staff members with a definition of social and emotional learning as we built our understanding and skills on each of the 5 competencies. This year, we begin stage 2, and we're going to continue our staff's professional development, where we're going to dedicate each month to one of the 5 competencies, where we can provide our teachers strategies that they can take back and incorporate into the classroom. We also introduced last year our social and emotional learning buddies. We partnered up our primary classes with an upper elementary class together as a buddy. We found our buddies can be beneficial and rewarding experience for both age groups, as together they support each other with social emotional learning, mentoringship, and a sense of community amongst our schools.
At Bosque Farms Elementary, all staff is developed professionally in their practice using evidence-based practices that impact student learning outcomes. This flows from our district initiatives with All Learner Days, but also with our instructional priorities that are led by our teacher leadership team and from our instructional coaches. Two of our areas for focus flowed from an analysis of student achievement data in reading, writing, and math over the summer. The leadership team identified two targeted, focused, and sustained site initiatives. One that works with explicit writing instruction, grounded in analyzing student work. We included instructional blocks for each grade level team devoted entirely to the use and focus of writing. We are developing a vertical alignment of end of year expectations in the content area of writing for our students. Additionally, we have an initiative that continues from last year in our number talks with daily instructional practice of collaborative discussion in math real world problems. This will be a presentation by students of their answers to presented word problems with explanation, and it also evaluating the other presented answers from their peers.
Effective communication from our school is essential in order for us to foster that strong partnership between our educators and our parents. At BFE, some of the ways that we communicate with our families include our monthly newsletters and our frequent remind messages to families. We can also be found on social media as we share important announcements, calendar updates, and pertinent information about our school. And lastly, our parent-teacher conferences. Conferences are a valuable and important component of our education. We communicate with our families so that we can build relationships, problem solve, and connect school to home.
At Bosque Farm Elementary, all stakeholder groups are welcomed to our learning community, but especially our families and community members. We have annual 2 content area nights, an ELA and Fine Arts night, and I'll pause here for the audience to prepare paper and digital tools to record these dates and times. This year in the fall, we have our ELA and Fine Arts night on Thursday, September 28th from 5 to 6:30. And we have our math and science night in the spring this year. That's January 16th from 5 to 6:30. To join us, please come. And you'll see you'll see student presentations of their work in the fine arts and science fair projects that are grounded in the engineering process and the scientific method. You'll also see our teachers and teacher teams present hands-on activities for families and students to practice grade level content in the reading, writing, and math content areas. Want to also give a shout out to our parent teacher community that leads many extra evenings for our family and community that are listed at the bottom. Any questions on any of this information? See our website and email administration.
And at BFE, we know students, in order for them to learn, must feel safe and accepted. Therefore, BFE hosts monthly safety meetings with our staff members. Our safety committee's goal is to create a safe and conducive learning environment for not only students, but staff. Our school nurse and her husband offered a Stop the Bleed training to all staff members last year. If you're unfamiliar with what Stop the Bleed is, it's a nationwide awareness campaign that calls to action any bystanders to be trained and equipped in the help of an emergency. And lastly, in the bottom right corner, you'll see one of our sub badges. One of the concerns that was recently brought forth to our staff last year was when we had a sub visit our campus, they're not always informed and aware of the drills and protocols we have in place when there's an emergency. Therefore, we designed our sub badges to have basic outlines of each of our emergency drills so that our subs know what to do in order to keep our children safe.
We would like to give a special thank you to our Simply the Best staff that is joining us tonight for our school showcase presentation. I believe we have 6 staff members here. Thank you for being here. Of note, there was a monsoon at dismissal today that affected many of us. So my shirt is still drying. So I know that maybe they were unable to attend for those reasons. We also stand, Madam President Garcia and members of the board, for any questions that you may have for our learning community.
First, can you stand for
Yeah.
Garcia, for Bosque Farm School? Let me see who's here. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
So I want to commend you for volunteering to go first. It was a very, very informative and data riddled presentation, which I really, really liked. And I just wanted to put the other principals on notice that Bosque Farms has set the bar very, very high. But it was an awesome presentation, and continue the good work that you guys are doing. You do an amazing job, you and your staff.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Madam President. Yeah, I just want to commend you for actually getting input from the staff on how to reach the kids. I think that's very important because they're in the classrooms and they really need to know how to reach them. And I thank you for that. That's great.
Mr. Vickers?
Yeah, the presentation on math, on the way you sort of flip the math. I think that's a great method. You give them a real world problem and then say, here's how you solve it with the math tools that you've learned. That's great. And I noticed, phonics is back in. Phonics was in and then out, and then, so it's back in. I think it's a very valuable tool. So thanks a lot for the presentation.
Heck of a presentation. I mean, I could add what these guys said about you guys, but you guys can only do it with the staff behind you guys. So kudos to you guys.
I just want to add on the math because one of the speakers at your convocation said math is so important at whatever level of skill that these kids are going to graduate and go to in the workforce even. So that real world math also caught my attention, and I think that's awesome that you guys entered that into your presentation. And yes, continue the good work, and thank you. And the rest of you principals are now on notice. It's what it's got to guess look like every time you get up here and explain your district. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Elder, number 12C.
Right, I will be brief. I do hope that you notice that we have started to align the format for the school reports with the foundational assumptions and the board priorities. So every school report you get will focus on those two foundational pieces for our district, so that we're really working on aligning the work and communicating that through the priorities and foundational assumptions. I'd like to thank all of our employees. It has taken every single one of us to get this year lifted off. We are off and running. The students are in classes. They're doing fantastic. They're learning things. They're getting to school on time. They're getting fed, they're getting their needs met in every way. And that has taken the hands and the hearts and the minds of every single employee in this district. And so I would like to send a huge shout out to absolutely everyone. I would also like to send out a huge thank you to some of our education and industry partners that joined us for convocation. Dr. Dosamu and Dr. Musselwhite from UNM Valencia County, J.R. Tarrant from Fortis Construction, Kurt Boehm from Walkomany, Kristen Gamboa from PNM, and Florence Madrid from Niagara Bottling joined us for convocation and helped frame our work in terms of students' life post-high school. And so I can't say how much I appreciate their partnership and their willingness to give of their time and their insight to all of us. We have had some students who have not shown up to school yet. And so our school staff is working very hard to track down every single one. They are making phone calls. They are nagging to get our kids in school. We want every single student in school. And if they've registered somewhere else, we want to know that. We want to know where they've been. And so we're working very hard at documenting those contacts and being sure that we know that every student who's not in our classrooms, that we know where they are. And so I'd like to commend the school leadership for that as well. And so that concludes my report for the start of the school year.
Thank you, Dr. Elder. Any questions about the start of the school year, gentlemen? Direct to Dr. Elder at this time.
Well, Madam President, I have one question. How's the school supply going? I know there was a hiccup there or something. Is that,
Yes.
we have them now?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to actually defer to CFO Tracek. I know that she worked very hard with her team to make sure that we were ordering from vendors items that were in stock and that they were able to deliver. And so I know they've been working very hard on that. So if you can give us an update.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent, Dr. Elder, school supplies are on their way. Actually, a very large load came in today. And so I just checked my phone just a few seconds ago because I sent everything out to my employees in my department asking for volunteers to help separate. The way that I was able to get them to the sales rep to get them in sooner. I think she went out to warehouses and they came in not labeled with purchase orders and stuff like that. So for Joseph. So there's a lot that came in just today. They've been trickling in beforehand. They've picked up speed, but all the shipping confirmations I was receiving saying they've been shipped, but they actually hadn't gone out the door. So I think shipping meant put in a box and sat for a while is what it seems like, because they didn't go out. And many of these orders were, ordered over a month ago. So I was unaware because normally I don't do any ordering that the vendor, but is one that does take quite a bit longer. So, but we do have a lot, so they should be start receiving them, the majority of everything this week.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Start school. All right, good job. These items are for informational purposes only. No action is needed or warranted at this time. Thank you, Dr. Elder. That brings us to item number 13, which is discussion and action to amend policies. Now, this is our discussions for sections C and F. We started this discussion in July, so there should be some printed amendments to those. And then we're starting on the first read of sections D and E. So why don't we start with C and F, which is item number E on the agenda, Dr. Elder? I don't know if you want to start there.
Sure, Madam President. How would the board like to proceed? In your packets, you'll find printed copies of section C and F that the revisions were made based on the discussion, based on public input and staff input from our last meeting. Would you like to go through those changes page by page, or would you like to talk about it kind of as a whole?
I know we went page by page at the last meeting on the 11th, so I'll leave it to the discretion of the board. I would say if we go just where the changes were made, perhaps. But that's just a suggestion, gentlemen. Mr. Smith, I know.
Yeah, so we went over them with the
Right.
copy of it. And, when we were going over them, I personally cut and pasted them in here. So if you wanted to go over them item by item, we can do that, but wouldn't be for my benefit. I think some of all the changes that were made in there make sense, and we can do that if you just want to go over the other sections, I guess.
Madam President, does anybody oppose the changes? I mean, that's the best.
Good question, Mr. Hedon. I know when we were going through it, it seemed to be the consensus of the board at the time that we agreed with what was presented as a change. So, gentlemen, the copy in front of you in your packet has some highlighted versions that were added based off of those discussions. Does anybody want to call to attention an area that you have an issue with?
Madam President, I do. I think it was section C0600, the evaluation of superintendents. And I was thinking instead of having a yearly evaluation on December 18th, if we could change that to a quarterly evaluation of superintendent and then and leaving that February to determine the superintendent's contracts, which was I think C0100.
Madam President, Mr. Bennett, if you look at the copy with the yellow, we did have some discussion last time about the timeline outlined in the original NMSBA policies was difficult to navigate. And so the discussion was the added sentence at the beginning of the fourth paragraph that states specific dates for the evaluation process shall be included in the superintendent's contract for the following actions. That would include the superintendent shall provide each member of the board a copy of the evaluation instrument, striking out the date. The president shall schedule a meeting, striking out the date when the board will devote an executive session to the evaluation of the superintendent's performance. And then the rest of the paragraph remains unchanged. So that was the conversation as we left it at the last meeting, which is what's reflected in front of you. If the will of the board is to change that to quarterly, I can certainly make that change and bring it back next meeting.
So the language would be deleted out and just dealt with whatever the terms are we put in the contract. That's what was, I think, discussed last time. She would just remove dates. So I don't know if that calls to mind that we would not put in a date or a quarter or whatever it would be addressed in the contract of the. So no, that is the point with me. Well, I don't know if it's going to say quarterly or what. I think that's what we have to decide. But the point is the policy itself won't have the date. The board will have to negotiate the date with the contract.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that was the spirit of it when we said that we were going to go off of the concept. But I do agree with Mr. Bennett that when we talk in the contract, we're talking about an evaluation. When it should in fact be at least 2 more during the year, maybe not in the final format, but as a catch up or a status update or things we need to be doing better, things we're doing excellent kind of a conversation. So when we get to that date that's specified in the contract, there aren't any surprises for anybody. So now I don't know if that's incorporated into a policy or not. I don't know if we can do that, or we can just as a board say that we're going to evaluate this. We're going to have a meeting with the superintendent as a catch up kind of thing, as a status of where we're at based on the goals that we set. I don't know. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because just those dates that it gave us just
Oh, right.
didn't work.
Those particular dates don't work.
Right.
So
So,
for the final.
so what's being presented to us tonight for possible approval eliminates dates. So we agree that those are going to come out. The next agreement is going to be that it be addressed in the contract with the superintendent, and that we follow whatever the terms are with the contract. So if everybody's in agreement, then the verbiage in the yellow would be inputted and what's marked out will come out when we vote. Have other comments on anything highlighted? No. Anybody else have comments on anything highlighted? So then I think at this point, we need to discuss getting a motion for approval of section C and F. If we recall, section F was the facilities development. It was a very small or short-lived policy. I don't recall that we had any changes identified within those 2 pages of facilities development.
Yes, so there, Ms. Garcia, I believe there was one change under 50 that said to explicitly incorporate learner, staff, and community safety as an integral part
So it's in this one.
of the facility.
There it is. I was looking at my notes last night. Okay.
So that was the only change that we had. We discussed the section. Correct.
I spoke, I'm sorry. Any questions or concerns about the input of what's highlighted under F0050? Third bullet one. Okay, go ahead, sir.
I make a motion that we approve section C and F as amended into board policy.
Second.
So I got a motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. Bennett. Discussion, gentlemen. Not hearing any, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Guidon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers,
Yes,
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
And I too vote yes. Section C and F of the policies have been adopted as amended. That brings us to item 13B, which is sections D and E. This is the new or the first read on these two sections, gentlemen, and we are looking at
Ms. Garcia, we have sections D and E and with the proposed changes from all staff, correct? All staff, one parent input, but happen to be a staff member, is that correct?
Community. Yeah.
Community that happen to be a staff member. So these are the changes that they wanted to be incorporated in there. And I'm assuming Mr. Kennedy is going to take care of this and
So Mr. Kennedy wasn't able to be with us this evening, and so he has not reviewed these recommendations from staff. So of course we'll want to ask him to, but we can go through them this evening and then bring it back in a similar fashion next month.
sure.
so you've input and highlighted like that.
I can read them if you'd like. Ms. Garcia.
I think we should read them just so that everybody knows what we're considering entering into these policies. If you don't mind reading it, then I'll let you do so, sir.
I do not. So the first comment, recommended change was to B0050, fiscal management goals and priority objectives. It was to add to the last bullet and the state of New Mexico procurement code, which the bullet would now read, follow the manual of procedures for public school accounting and budgeting and the New Mexico procurement and the state of New Mexico procurement code. Sure. And just real quick, I'm assuming most of these came from the business office, correct? Yes, okay.
That would be appropriate,
Yep.
yes.
Took a shot. The next one is a D0800, and that would be to change budget series to budget function to align with current commonly used and understood language.
it's series in
It appears twice, Mr. Vickers, once in the second paragraph and again
Yeah. Read series.
twice in the second paragraph.
okay. All right, thank you.
The next one is on D1800. Which deals with authorized signatures. The proposed change is to change signature plates to electronic approval in the financial software system and delete the last sentence since signature plates don't exist. Moving. The next one is D1950, which deals with credit cards and telephones. The change would be to remove the first section and first three bullets. So everything above the third bullet, purchase cards, may be sub-numbered. Is that what I'm reading? I think I read that right.
Yes.
The second change would be to the third bullet at the third bullet. Would read, a log will be kept of all credit and activity at the Transportation Director's Office instead of 3 locations. Telephone use verification and payment. They recommended changes to delete antiquated 3 paragraphs, change title to just credit cards. The next would be D2050. Counting system. Recommended change would be look at statute on bonding. And this is obviously for Mr. Kennedy to look at. The next one would be 2450. Which is contracts for purchases and services. Recommended change is the 3rd sentence. Change purchasing agent to chief procurement officer. So language is consistent with state certification title and add formal to bids and proposals on line 8. The next one is D3000. Which is payroll procedures and schedules. The recommended change is 26 equal installments. The biweekly pay dates shall be provided on the annual payroll calendar. So change 26 equal installments to the biweekly pay dates shall be provided on the annual payroll calendar. Next one is 3100. And somebody said something. Salary deductions. We'll have Mr. Kennedy look about deductions that must be authorized by the board and the employee. Voluntary deductions, we need the recommended changes delete who are being covered under board approved section 125 cafeteria programs. This is not mandatory and the language makes it sound mandatory. The next one is in section E. And 50. Which deals with vandalism. First sentence, we want to change to will to may to make the optional and not mandatory on the first sentence. So it will read as part of the protection from vandalism, the Board of Education may. Next one is 1950. Which is transportation services. The recommended change is strike complaint forms, sentence end of paragraph 5. Paragraph 7, delete and replace with adult volunteers shall not be transported with students. Right. So I mean, that's for parents' purposes.
Aligns with current practice.
The next one is E2050. Eligibility for bus transportation, walkers, and riders. What qualifies as a hazardous or difficult under bullet number 2? We'll ask Mr. Kennedy to define that. Delete the SUV paragraph. Las Unas does not own appropriate vehicles that meet the criteria. Next is 2300. Bus driver requirements, training and responsibility, required consent section, unsure what this means. So we'll have Mr. Kennedy define this. Next is E2700. Student transportation in private vehicles, add to the title of the policy per capita reimbursement. Next is item 3300. Free and reduced price food services. Recommended delete due to statewide free meals with no requirement for completion. So we'll have Mr. Kennedy verify that we can delete this. Last one is 3900. Copyright compliance. The recommended change is recommend further legal review and updates. So we'll have Mr. Kennedy review this one. This is a little bit longer than most. So say that there's any changes. So I guess if he just wants to review it and make sure that it's legal with all the required updates that they reference, I guess we're good with that one. And that's all the changes I have. So those will be incorporated at the next board meeting for sections D and E.
From staff. And then is there,
Correct.
right, okay.
And then if board members had changes to those,
To make sure to document those and forward those to,
me, and I'll get them to Mr. Kennedy. Or
just there.
Either
So
way.
those are. And
Yeah, we'll-
also in public,
Yeah.
yeah, and also any public concerns can be done online because these are up online, correct?
They have been up online for the last month, Madam President. And we had one person respond to the online form who was also an employee.
So they can,
Yes.
Right. And in the spirit of what we talked about with not putting stringent timelines on this, we're going to give everybody an opportunity to do this. And then after that date, we've got to move forward.
Madam
That's what
President.
yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Madam President, members of the board, interim superintendent Elder, I did want to point out one more item for your discussion and consideration, and I'm trying to flip through it real quick to find it. It is with regard to the telephone services. It's in policy service E. And my note for policy E3900 was also to get legal review by Mr. Kennedy, and not to forget that you have the Las Lunas school phrase that is copyrighted that also needs to be somehow incorporated into that policy. But separate and apart from that, with regard to one other policy that is proposed here, that is policy E4250, use of technology in office services. One of the issues that has come up frequently in inspection of public records requests that have been received by Las Lunas Public Schools, as well as by other schools and other government agencies across the state of New Mexico, is whether or not your electronic messages that you receive as text messages on your cell phones would fall under this sort of policy. I think it bears serious consideration and serious discussion in terms of how a district or any other governmental agency should address those text messages, particularly when those text messages concern discussions or some form of conducting the business of the agency, in this case, the business of the public schools. I can tell you that I've had many discussions on this topic with many individuals across the state of New Mexico, including some members of your cabinet and interim superintendent Elder, as well as other attorneys. And this area
is in fact a gray area. There is current pending litigation on the issue of whether or not text messages are public records and should be saved. And my recommendation is that text messages be saved especially if you're conducting business on your text messages, and that there be a policy that it somehow be incorporated in one of your policies for that purpose. Now, I did not expect it to come up in this section. I know that there's another section that deals directly with inspection of public records. However, after reviewing this section, it is clear that the two would work hand in hand. So I would encourage you to have a discussion about how text messages are saved. Each of you are issued cell phones, individuals, employees, high-ranking employees across the district are issued cell phones. They all have texting capacity on them, and I believe it merits a discussion in that regard. I do note that this particular policy starts off by saying the board or district employees, and then the rest of the policy seems to be directed primarily at the board, but then finishes in the compliance section by referencing both the board and the employees, which means, generally speaking, as we interpret it, all of the provisions of this policy would apply both to the board and to the employees. So unless you make it clearer than it already is, as you review this policy, I would ask you to take that into consideration and to have a discussion on that topic. Thank you.
Thank you. So looking at item E 4250 of the policies, support services as directed by council. I guess there's a couple of things that pop to mind for me, might be that you draft us some language of where we would put it in this section, as well as in the other policy section that you mentioned that it would fall under, for us to decide if that's language we'd want to gather. Otherwise, I'll open it up to the board if they have language they would like us to consider, or is this something you want to talk openly about at this time, or do you want to look at the verbiage first?
Well, I think. First of all,
Have him give us some verbiage that would. That's true, and then I don't have to direct the council to do that. Gentlemen, anybody have a different suggestion or recommendation?
No, I think that's good. But Mr. Kennedy and also comment that we need to define what electronic communications are immediately in this policy. This is what we're talking about in this entire policy, what electronic communications are that are susceptible to IRPRA if you're conducting business on it, whether that be text, emails. I mean, it has to include everything that should be in here. And one of the things that I want to do is separate practice and policy, because we can't enforce practices. We can only enforce policies. So we need to make sure that we have a policy that says what we do with our electronic communications. So that's what I'm going to ask them to do is define what that is, and what can and cannot be accepted as electronic communications. If text messages or scribbles on your paper can be IPRA, then they can be IPRA, and we need to include that in our policy and make sure that we're aware.
I don't know if anybody else have any comment on that. Could you all, and are you also going to direct them on the trademark and make sure that we have some language in there concerning our school trademark?
I'll mention it to them about the school trademark. Yeah, since it is, I guess.
He can maybe direct us where it should be, what it should look like in language, if it goes here or if it goes someplace else.
Yeah, I'm still not convinced that it is, but maybe that's a question I should start him with to find out if it is in fact, and then we can, but I will definitely do that.
All right. So again, gentlemen, if you have comments or suggestions that you want to see changes in section E, which is the support services, and then of course section D, which was fiscal management, make sure you get those comments or suggestions forward. Otherwise, we'll look for this language to be incorporated for a possible vote, which would come up at our September meeting, which I don't know if we've identified that yet, what date that will be. September 12th, okay, so the next policy meeting would be September 12th. These items will be up for discussion and review and possible vote at that meeting.
And just as a side note, we are giving section G as a here it is.
Yeah.
Start reviewing. So
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Smith. So in your packets, you had section G, which is personnel. Not quite as long as support services is long, personnel's twice as long. So again, thank you to the staff that reviewed fiscal management and support services for your review of our policies. We definitely needed your input. Personnel, you're up next. We definitely need input there. And thank you, Dr. Elder, for putting this together for possible suggestions. All right, so that leaves us with no vote on section 13B because it's still under review, and brings us to item number 14, which is our work plan, which again, I think we just discussed is going to be personnel and section G. That might be up for a little bit of discussion for what Dr. Kettler might see that we've done here tonight and the outline that's been provided to us by Superintendent Elder. So it helps us work through what the revised policies would look like to your staff. So I guess you'll be up on that one next time. Is there any other work plan you think we should guide him on, or you think that covers it?
Madam President, we'll go ahead and post section B along with the form for public input, as we've done in previous months, and represent that public input as well as staff input. Dr. Kettler will at the September meeting.
You said B, but you meant
G.
okay.
Yes, G.
Making sure.
Thank you
So-
for understanding what I meant rather than what I said.
Okay, thank you. So that brings us then to item number 15, or would be 16, the status report of the 2019 bond projects. Dr. Elder, I'll turn it over to you to introduce the speaker on this.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to call Tiffany McMinn to the podium. She has done a fantastic job of looking at our 2019 bond campaign, what we said we would do, and matching that up with what we have accomplished. So that's to you, Tiffany.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, interim superintendent, Dr. Elder. Thank you for letting us our department present tonight on the 2019 bond construction project review. There was a group of us that met together. We collected information from the past bond that was up for election in 2019 that did pass. With that, that's how we came to this presentation. So next slide. What we're going to identify tonight are three things. The first one will be identifying what those projects that were selected and proposed, how we came to select those, and factors in completing those projects. The second part will be going through an overview of each school site and reviewing the status of those projects. And then the third is what's next and identifying projects for our next bond election. So in identifying construction projects, there's a lot of factors that come into play. We definitely want to choose projects where every school site is to receive upgrades. So this were upgrades from 2020 to 2024. School site specific projects were also identified in our previous facility master plan, and they were outlined as construction improvement projects. And then also flyers were handed out for each school site to staff and parents, so they would know what projects we were going to be proposing to do if the bond passed in 2019. And the next slide. There's some outside factors that came into play with completing the projects over the past 4 years. One of those is COVID-19 pandemic, which led to worldwide shutdowns and also shortages in supply chains, which we're still seeing today with construction materials. And also another factor, a big one that came up these past couple of years, is the construction industry inflation rate rises. So this is taken from the the Association of General Contractors. They keep tabs of inflation rates through various construction trades. One of the items, if you were to go look in more detail, the biggest one that stands out to me is we're looking to rebuild Peralta Elementary, is the inflation rise of building a new school is up 17%. And so that continues to rise every year. And it's an interesting thing to look at when you want to see what it costs to put in asphalt or put in concrete or put in framing. There's an overall trend of an increase every year. So with that, our money only goes so far. And being that the 2019 bond passed, this is what we were able to accomplish with those funds. And so we'll start with Ann Parish Elementary. Each slide will present to you a screenshot of the flyers that were given out in 2019. And in the green were proposed projects that we were to accomplish with that if that bond passed. And on the left side, you will see we were able to complete all of those projects, as well as we have a few ongoing. And then in addition to the projects that were proposed at Ann Parish Elementary, we were able to do additional parking lot striping. If we go to Bosque Farms Elementary, we were able to complete all the proposed projects with an ongoing of flooring replacement still happening. And then we were also able to complete on top of the proposed projects, parking lot striping, marquee improvements, and concrete repairs. At Desert View Elementary, we were able to complete all projects with ongoing lighting upgrades in the exterior of the campus. With additional completed projects, we were able to add on painting, parking lot repairs, flooring replacements, a metal canopy structure, and concrete repairs. KGE saw all projects completed with ongoing exterior lighting upgrades. Additional projects we were able to do on top of were synthetic turf replacement, parking lot repairs, flooring replacement, metal canopy structure. We were also able to do concrete repairs and marquee improvements. LLE also saw all completed projects that were proposed with ongoing exterior lighting upgrades. Additional items we were able to do on top of the proposed projects were a parent drop-off, parking lot striping, flooring replacement, HVAC upgrades, concrete repairs, and also a metal canopy structure. Peralta Elementary, we were able to complete part of our process with the PSCOC awarded capital improvements project is that we were required by PSFA to complete a feasibility and utilization study, which was completed. The second part of that improvement project was to complete an enrollment and boundary study, which is also completed. And then our ongoing project actually is a completed project at the point of we are 100% complete with construction drawings. We will be going out for RFP in the coming week, seeking a contractor to start Peralta Elementary. The next campus is Raymond Gabaldon Elementary, seeing all proposed projects completed with ongoing roof repairs. In addition, we were able to complete painting, marquee improvements, and improvements to the student walking track. Sundance Elementary saw all proposed projects completed with additional projects, including a marquee improvement, concrete repairs, site fencing, which also includes their new gate system that is going in right now. Tomet Elementary also saw all completed projects that were proposed with ongoing exterior lighting upgrades. Additional projects they saw on their campus were roof coating and skylight replacements, flooring improvements, painting, marquee improvements, parking lot repairs, and also a metal canopy structure. Valencia Elementary also saw all completed projects that were proposed for 2019 with ongoing exterior lighting upgrades. Additional projects they received were flooring replacement, painting, marquee improvements, parking lot repairs, and also concrete improvements. Going on to our middle schools, Los Lunas Middle School received a PSCOC Systems-Based Award, which their whole campus received upgrades. It included a lot of site improvements, HVAC upgrades, exteriors, pretty much an overhaul of their whole campus. Items that we were able to do in addition to that was a digital marquee replacement, additional flooring replacements, weight room improvements, complete bathroom remodels, a metal shade canopy structure, and also additional painting. Valencia Elementary saw all of their 2019 bond projects completed with additional projects, including gym flooring, security camera improvements, painting, weight room improvements, track renovations, and also baseball improvements. We're also add to that in the process of replacing all exterior doors and windows. As for our high school, Century High School saw all of their proposed projects completed with ongoing exterior lighting improvements and painting upgrades happening. Los Lunas High School, we saw all proposed projects completed. We have an ongoing project of the football stadium master plan design in place. Additional items we were able to complete on campus was an ROTC obstacle course, scoreboard replacements through all sports, weight room improvements, volleyball locker room. We have upgraded the LED lighting in the gymnasium, flooring replacements, and then the auditorium also saw LED lighting upgrades for their house lights. At Valencia High School, we did complete all proposed projects. In addition to those proposed projects, we were able to also accomplish track and field improvements, parking lot improvements, scoreboard replacements throughout sports, obstacle course. We saw security camera improvements, roof coating and repairs, and weight room equipment and batting cage improvements. And so lastly, preparing for this next bond election in November, we are actively looking at our in-progress new 5-year facility master plan. We'll be finalizing that in the coming weeks. We will be looking at the construction improvement projects proposed in that document for each school site and look at the priority ratings as how we're going to utilize the next bond election for improvements. We also look at PSFA's facility management assessment report, which is called an FMAR rating from PSFA. They go and review each of our school sites and they determine different areas that we can implement to improve our maintenance and different upgrades to reach the benchmark that they established for us. So we keep those high, good, and outstanding ratings at each of our school sites. To keep in mind, these are documents that are actively changing throughout the years as PSFA continually reviews our sites and our facility master plan is updated as needed based off of our priorities for our school sites. And the last slide is just a snapshot of some of the school sites with those improvements that we've seen throughout the district. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Do you want to make any comments or questions of Tiffany for the upcoming bond projects, what was completed and where we're going to go from here? Go ahead, sir.
So I wanted to commend you for all the work that you did. The presentation was excellent. I was very excited to see a lot of the bullets were revolving around safety and security. And we know that's where we need to start, especially in today's age. But a lot of that, every single bullet on there affects the learning process at our schools. And it's very impressive list of all the stuff we've been able to do with the bonds. So it's awesome. And I think you did a really, really good job. And our schools are coming along. We're taking care of business. So it's really good.
Thank you.
Madam President. Yeah, Tiffany, that was a great presentation. And I like the fact that you showed what's been completed that was, put out there that was going to be on the list, and those are completed. And that's probably the most important thing voters need to see is those things that we said were going to be done, got done.
Tiffany, it's amazing the job you do and the immensity of the work involved with all these school sites. And I do commend you for keeping all the balls in the air.
Thank you. We have a team that meets every Thursday to go over where we're headed, what's our budget, how do we procure these items. So it's a big effort in keeping on top of everything every week.
Good job.
Thank you for the presentation.
All right, thank you very much. And yes, we look forward to our next steps of our upcoming facility management. And so thank you. Thank you. Brings us to item number 17, which is new business board member request for topic on upcoming board work sessions. Gentlemen, I need to know what you want me to put on the next meeting agenda or Any upcoming other than the next one? What do you want to see? Start on this end, gentlemen, anything? No suggestions at this point? This side? All right, well, there will be a discussion of the agenda probably early part of next week. And I'll be working with Dr. Kettler on what that agenda would look like. And if you think of something you didn't think of tonight, please make sure you bring forward what you would like to see done. Having said that, that brings us to the announcement meetings.
For you, copy.
I need my script to talk about my stuff. That's sorry. For all this paperwork I have, here's me 1 minute.
Well, it's on that one. I think that you-
I got it right here. All right. Sorry about that. All right. So this brings us to the announcement of meetings as allowed by the Open Meetings Act and the District Open Meetings Resolution. On occasion, a quorum of the board members attend the same function, including those held at school sites at the district level, as well as sports functions and community activities. Board members will refrain from discussing and or acting as La Cuna School Board of Education issues in those settings. In addition, only official meetings are published, and if meetings are scheduled, they will be announced in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. With that being said, I'll announce the following meetings. On August 15th, the Finance Committee will meet here at Central Boardroom at 3 p.m. On August 15th, 2023, the Audit Committee will meet here at Central Boardroom, at 4 p.m. On August 15th, there will be a board work session. This will be a topic for the facility master plan. It'll be here at the Central Boardroom, and that'll start at 5 p.m. And then on August 22nd will be our regular board meeting here at Central Boardroom, and that would be at 6 p.m. That leads us to the adjournment of the meeting. I believe we have all signatures, but before we leave, just confirm before you leave the room or the building, and I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting. Can I get a motion? Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Bennett. Any discussion on adjournment? Mr. Hedon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Yep.
Mr. Vickers?
Yep.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And I too vote yes. Meeting is adjourned. It is now 7:50. Everybody have a nice night.